Chapter 547 Repeated Blows. What? We've already been here for 10 days? After hearing her words, Huo expression immediately changed. After completing his fusion with Liga, he had clearly felt his spiritual power growing until its limit. Furthermore, he was also certain that his spiritual soul core had reached the tier of a transcendent Dalu. He even wanted to use this opportunity to form his second soul core. This was because there was no safer place than this underwater world. However, after listening to the words of the Princess of the Sea, he immediately removed the thought from his head. He could not delay any further. Things outside were probably much more chaotic after 10 days. He didn't know what the situation was like at the front lines. He was also unable to deal any repeated blows to the Sun Moon Empire. The earlier strategy that he came up with was likely to be greatly affected. In addition, his teammates were also waiting anxiously in the demiplane. Huo couldn't be bothered about the reluctance of the Princess of the Sea to leave her daughter right now. He quickly bade goodbye to them. Under the personal escort of the Princess of the Sea, he drifted towards the surface. No matter how unwilling the Princess of the Sea was, she needed to part ways with her daughter. After the pair bade each other farewell, Liga fused back into Huo's body. Huo and Tang Wutong unleashed their Class 9 flying type soul tools and immediately activated them to reach their highest speed. They flew towards the Sun Moon Empire. Tang Wutong grabbed Huo's hand tightly as she felt how tense he was. Since time has already passed, there's no point brooding over it. Although 10 days isn't very short, it's also not that long over the course of a war. You don't have to be too worried either. When we return, we can immediately begin our operation. All right. After this buffer period, Huo finally calmed down. Being anxious wasn't going to solve the problem. The best way was to continue his operation. The return journey was much smoother than coming to the IC. The entire aquatic world treated Huo as their best human friend because of his fusion with Liga. Huo and Tang Wutong only took an hour before they returned to shore as they drained their soul power without any further thought. Huo revealed a mysterious look on his face before he even stepped on land. He immediately muttered a few incantations before opening the spectral door. 10 days had also passed in the spectral demiplane. Bei, Shu Sanchi and Zhang Nanan were still very emotionally stable. However, they were still a little anxious, given that a long time had passed. Why is Huo still not back or contacted anyone yet? Something must have happened to him. Don't tell me that he's met with danger in the IC. Furthermore, they couldn't leave the demiplane without him. All they could do was wait around. If something really happened to him, they would most likely be trapped here for their entire lives, or at least until their supply of food and water ran out. Just as everyone was becoming more and more anxious, the spectral door finally opened, much to their relief. Huo and Tang Wutong had finally returned. Yuao, where have you been? Why are you back only now? Zhang Nanan snapped as she saw Huo. It would have been great even if he had only sent a letter. Over the past 10 days, they had felt very tortured. They still had to train the members of the 3 Soul Engineer Legions. Huo immediately called for a meeting and recounted everything he had experienced in the IC. After hearing his words, everyone stopped blaming him. They only had lingering fear in their hearts. Huo felt the same way too. Elder Senior, before I carry out any mission on my own in the future, I must first release all of you from this demiplane. Otherwise, if I... Alright, quit this depressing talk. Now is not the time to talk about that. What should we do next? Do you have any ideas? Bei said. Huo nodded and opened up a map. He said, I've been delayed in the IC for 10 days. It's both a good and bad thing. Because of this 10-day buffer, the Sun Moon Empire will definitely subconsciously think that we passed through their borders in the same manner as when we appeared in the south. Just that we use some kind of method to avoid their aerial surveillance soul tools. We must be quick and deal them a heavier blow. Shu Tianran is an anti-hero. If we don't inflict pain that's intolerable on him, he won't pull his troops from the front lines easily. That's why we must be quick and vicious. I just don't know what the situation at the front line is right now. Only Huo could return to Shrek Academy to gather intelligence. Under such a circumstance, returning to gather intelligence was meaningless. He would waste more time if he went there and returned. Even if he knew what was going on at the front lines, wouldn't he still need to return to target the Sun Moon Empire if he wanted to change the situation of the war? This was why Huo quickly figured that he needed to stay and continue to inflict internal damage on the Sun Moon Empire. In that way, they would be forced to pull their troops back. This was the real strategy. After a simple communication of the plan to the rest, Huo and Tang Wutong left the demiplane again after the meeting ended. In fact, the 3 Soul Engineer Legions in the demiplane should be let out for a short breather. However, time was tight. There was a lack of time for them to do so. Only news of Huo's return was relayed to them, and they were allowed to watch as Huo left again. At the same time, they were informed that the next fight was about to break out again. After hearing that a fight was about to break out soon, the members of the 3 Soul Engineer Legions all rubbed their palms in excitement. Their morale was boosted once again, which left Huo in shock. What Huo didn't know was that Bei had set up a merit system while he had been gone. The main point of this system was to reward those who contributed significantly. The resources, gems and gold soul coins that they had obtained earlier were mostly given out by Bei. Bei told every Soul Engineer in the 3 Soul Engineer Legions that they would be handsomely rewarded once they attained victory in any fight. They could choose from gold soul coins, soul tools, and other resources. As for how much they were rewarded, it depended on the merit they accumulated. After setting this system up, he immediately handed out rewards. Over the past 10 days, morale didn't fall because of the presence of these rewards. In addition, with the news that they were about to fight, how could these soul engineers not be excited, given the potential benefits they could reap? These soul engineers were all intelligent. Many of them chose not to take gold soul coins. Almost all of them wanted soul tools. From the earlier looting sessions they had participated in, which soul engineer didn't manage to equip himself with more soul tools. The stronger a soul engineer was, the more advantages he would have. This was because more advanced soul tools could only be used by stronger soul engineers. Huo's 4th Soul Engineer Legion reaped the greatest rewards. The 4th Soul Engineer Legion inherited all the heavy soul tools they had looted in the fights earlier. The other 2 Soul Engineer Legions had no use for these heavy soul tools. Since this was the case, the 4th Soul Engineer Legion didn't stand on ceremony and took control of all the heavy soul tools. After all, Juga divine crossbow cannons couldn't move very quickly. What was the disadvantage of having more heavy weapons? As a result, the 4th Soul Engineer Legion's strength grew the most. It was just that they became more and more inflexible as a result. After leaving the demiplane, Huo and Tang Wutong held hands as they rose into the sky. They proceeded towards the south of the Sun Moon Empire. As they flew in the air, Huo also unleashed his spiritual detection. The overall size of his spiritual sea had grown by a third. His soul core and spiritual power had also changed dramatically. The most direct benefit that he obtained was that his spiritual detection's effective range had reached a diameter of more than 20,000 meters, twice what it was before. This number even exceeded the effective range of the most advanced aerial surveillance soul tool that the Sun Moon Empire could manufacture. Just this skill could be considered an absolute divine skill in war. Very soon, Huo found many soldiers from the Sun Moon Empire in the wilderness. They were scattered and seemed to be searching for something. While things were bleak in Eastern Sun City, the city wasn't too chaotic. However, no Soul Engineer Legion was present there. It seems like the Sun Moon Empire has responded quite quickly. Russians should have been sent to resupply Eastern Sun City. Otherwise, things wouldn't be so stable. Huo wasn't going to attack Eastern Sun City at this point. The benefits that could be reaped from so were very small. Furthermore, that would only serve to expose his tracks. He unleashed his imitation, which concealed both him and Tang Wutong in the air. Under the effect of Huo's immense spiritual power, even oscillation detectors couldn't detect his presence now, much less aerial surveillance soul tools. As for spiritual power detectors, they could at most cover the size of a military camp. Huo had made himself completely invisible to the Sun Moon Empire. They flew quickly through the air. Huo didn't rest at all as he flew with Tang Wutong. They flew for 4 hours before they slowed down and returned to the ground to rest. Huo opened the map and conducted a simple check of where they were. Through the changes in the air temperature, Huo was completely sure that they were in the south of the Sun Moon Empire. Huo sensed the humid air and was annoyed as he commented, I still prefer the cold in the north. Over there, my fighting strength is higher by at least 30%. Tang Wutong covered her mouth and laughed. Didn't your journey to the IC teach you enough lessons? Huo nodded deeply and replied, of course it has. This journey has taught me not to run and fight in someone else's place. I won't even stand a chance. While the Princess of the Sea is powerful, we might still have stood a chance of fleeing even if we can't defeat her on land or at a fairer venue. However, in the depths of the sea, we were really trapped and had nowhere to run. Tang Wutong asked, have you chosen a target? Huo nodded and pointed at the map. Sea Joy City. A smirk appeared on Huo Yuao's lips. It was not his first time visiting this place. When he and the others from the Tang Sect snuck into the Sun Moon Empire by water to save the young talents who were participating in the Continental Advanced Soul Master Soul Dueling Tournament, they passed by this city. They had even rented a boat there. Huo Yua chose to attack this city for two reasons. First, it was an important port in the south of the Sun Moon Empire. Second, it was a way to confuse the Sun Moon Empire. At least, they might be misled that enemies would be trying to invade them from the sea. After half a day, Huo Yuao and Tang Wutong appeared in Seajoy City. Huo Yuao re-exited the city after making one round around it. He opened the spectral door outside the city and summoned the three Soul Engineer legions. The city was very small. There was no need to deploy so much manpower. However, the Soul Engineers had been stuck in the demiplane for too long. Hence, Huo Yuao wanted to let them out for a breather. Seajoy City was the perfect place to do so. The defense in the south was much slacker than in the north. This was because the aquatic soul beasts in the south were weaker than those in the north. Furthermore, they were only active in the deep sea. The Sun Moon Empire had specialized fleets to capture oceanic creatures in the southern sea regions. After all, there weren't any icebergs or other such extreme weather in the south. It made carrying out operations much easier. There were only 2,000 soldiers stationed in Seajoy City. They were only ordinary soldiers, and their abilities were all mixed. 30 Juga divine crossbow cannons were fired at the same time. One side of the city walls was immediately destroyed. Next was a simple step: pillage. The three largest warehouses in Seajoy City were completely cleaned out. Not only were there rations in these three warehouses, but there were also many special products and money that came from several southern coastal cities. Compared to the north, there was much more money and much fewer rations. After all, the city was by the sea, which meant that food was not in short supply. After pillaging the entire city, Huo Yua didn't even usher the Soul Engineers back into the spectral door. Instead, he directly sent them out. The Tang Sect and Fort Soul Engineer legions scattered in two different directions, attacking two different nearby cities. The southern cities were richer than the northern cities, and there were many more of them too. From the situation in Seajoy City, it could be inferred that the defenses in the other nearby cities weren't going to be very strong either. This was especially so since the two nearby cities that they attacked were even smaller. In just one day, three cities were completely plundered. As food wasn't scarce in the south, Huo Yua even decided not to rob the food from these cities. He only targeted the money, as well as trying to find rare metals. Although there weren't many rare metals in these southern cities, there were still some aerial surveillance soul tools in the sky. Taking them down was equivalent to obtaining rare metals. After the three cities were completely plundered, Huo Yua reopened the spectral door in the wilderness and sent the three Soul Engineer legions back into his spectral demiplane. After this one day of activity, they became much more refreshed and energetic. This was especially since a lot of the money that was looted was divided and given to them directly. These Soul Engineers were very free inside the demiplane. Under the organization of those from the Tang Sect, the three Soul Engineer legions even started to explore the boulder houses in the demiplane. Even though this demiplane wasn't the most aesthetic of places, it had great utility. It was beginning to develop some scale. They could even leave their valuables in the demiplane when they went out to fight. This enabled them to be equipped properly for fights. After returning to the demiplane, Huo Yua checked the map and chose other, more popular cities. These cities were their targets for the next day. Just like this, Huo Yua mysteriously led the three Soul Engineer legions and overran 12 medium-sized cities in the south of the Sun Moon Empire. He didn't choose major cities, as they were likely to be better defended. In addition, the medium-sized cities were lacking in manpower, as the front line needed men. Those 12 cities were plundered completely. The amount of money that was taken could fill countless giant warehouses. Right now, the Soul Engineers weren't even tempted by gold soul coins anymore. There was a mountain of them in the demiplane. From those 12 cities, quite a lot of rare metals were also taken from the private collections of the nobility. 26 various aerial surveillance soul tools were also obtained. Although most of them were directly shot down and were damaged beyond repair, the rare metals used to construct them were still useful. It was all good stuff. Bang. Shu Tianran smacked the table beside him, and there was a strong killing intent in his eyes. 5 days ago, good news came from the front lines. The Sun Moon Empire had completely overrun the Heavenly Soul Empire. This also meant that the Heavenly Soul Empire was utterly ruined and annexed into the Sun Moon Empire. This good news left Shu Tianran, a person who craved power, in very high spirits. However, bad news started to pour in only a few days after he heard the good news. There weren't any traces of the Soul Engineer Legion that had caused chaos in the north. It was as if they didn't exist at all. Then the south was subjected to a barrage of attacks. In just a few days, 12 emergency reports were received from 12 different cities in the south. The coastal cities in that area were all in danger, causing a crisis. It was important to know that those cities were very important to the Sun Moon Empire's economy. The yearly revenue from a medium-sized city in the south was equivalent to that of a major city in the north. Although there weren't many casualties in those 12 cities, fear quickly spread, and the amount of destruction that those cities had been subjected to was also very great. Those living in the south were all terrified, which served to destabilize Shu Tianran's reign. Don't tell me that those people who were still in the north a few weeks ago have mysteriously gone to the south. How is that possible, Your Majesty? I believe that those thieves must have traveled by water, the chief minister said. Shu Tianran looked at him. By water. They attacked the north previously. How can they reach there by water? The ice sea was to the north of the Sun Moon Empire. Moreover, the ice sea was adjacent to the ice plains of the extreme north. The conditions in the ice plains were very rigorous. No one knew what a further place would be like. To move across the ice plains through the north was impossible. The chief minister said, Your Majesty, it's not impossible. What if they didn't come from the north right from the start? We have a lot of troops at our borders in the north. We also have many aerial surveillance soul tools. It's not easy for a fly to enter, much less a Soul Engineer Legion. The only place that our surveillance soul tools can't reach is the sea. If those thieves moved out from the southern ports of the Dalu Empire and moved around our southern sea using a ship before proceeding to the north along our western shoreline, they would be able to move around 2/3 of our shoreline and reach the north. Although there are icebergs in the ice sea, there are very few of them nearer to land. We also have few aerial surveillance soul tools installed there. It's possible that Oak City and Eastern Sun City were taken down that way. These fellows are very cunning. After they overran Oak City and Eastern Sun City, they immediately escaped on their ship and returned by their original route. They went all the way to the south. When they reached the south, they attacked once again. The journey from north to south is thousands of kilometers long. It gave us the feeling that we are facing many enemies. Once they finish their attacks, they can immediately escape on their ship again. We wouldn't be able to find any traces of them. From the south, it's also possible to return to the Dalu Empire at any time. It's a brilliant plan. After hearing the chief minister's words, Shu Tianran was shocked. That's indeed possible. It's actually very possible. If that was really the case, it could well explain why he was so confused. But why are they not attacking our western cities? Shu Tianran was a little confused. The chief minister answered, the reason why they're not attacking our western cities is mainly because they're too far from the Dalu Empire. Radiant City is also quite close to the west. Once we discover a real-time situation and send a strong Soul Engineer Legion to deal with them, they would be exposed. Furthermore, it's much easier for us to guess what their purpose is if they move from north to west. If they directly return to the south, they can attack and defend. It's more advantageous for them. Shu Tianran squinted. Chief Minister, what do you think we should do then? A cold look flashed across the chief minister's face and he said, Your Majesty, we must be decisive. These thieves are very cunning. Their commander must be very intelligent. Our shoreline is so wide. In the depths of the sea, it's almost impossible to find any traces of them. Since they can move from north to south in just over 10 days, it's likely that they've already calculated for the presence of icebergs in the ice sea. Thus, their ship must be protected and moved by soul tools. It's likely that there's a soul formation on their ship. Since they can't challenge us directly, they are taking the indirect way. Such an enemy is like a parasite. We must get rid of them quickly. Otherwise, they'll cause more destruction and shake the foundation of our economy. Shu Tianran squinted and said, Do you mean? The chief minister nodded. Your Majesty, we must be decisive. No matter how strong these thieves are, they won't be able to challenge our Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion. They have been active in the southern coastal cities this time, so they are likely to still be there. We can send more aerial surveillance soul tools to watch that area, and also silently send out the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion. At the same time, we can send a few members of the worship hall call to follow them. Once we discover their exact location, we'll destroy them as quickly as possible. We can then regain everything we've lost and stabilize the south. After pausing for a moment, he added, the Empress is making a lot of progress at the front lines right now. We must stabilize things at the back and give her the appropriate support. Shu Tianran hesitated for a moment, then said, all right, we'll follow you then. He K2 looked at all the soul tools that were piled up like a mountain, and couldn't stop grinning. Although only some of them were still usable, the rare metals that could be obtained from these soul tools were already considered very valuable. Yuhao, I'm a little regretful. Before we set out, we should have brought our manufacturing line from the soul tool hall with us. When everyone is bored and has nothing to do, they can manufacture soul tools in the demi-plane. In this way, wouldn't it be more effective? Shu Sanchi chuckled at one side. K2, this isn't a bad idea. It's a constructive suggestion. The past few days have been good. I wonder what Shu Tianran is feeling right now. We've caused so many problems in the south. Yuhao, where are we going next? After attacking 12 cities, the 3 Soul Engineer legions of Shrek were unhurt. This greatly boosted their confidence. The Sun Moon Empire's defenses were simply too weak. No one from the 3 Soul Engineer legions had even been hurt so far, and they hadn't suffered any significant losses. The damage they had caused to the Sun Moon Empire couldn't be measured by money alone either. The last few cities among the 12 that were taken down even had all their city walls destroyed before the 3 Soul Engineer legions retreated. The soul tools used by the Soul Engineer legions were powered by the soul power of the Soul Engineers. They quickly recovered their soul power after they returned to the demiplane. Huro Yuao said, we've attacked for 5 days straight. Radiant City should have received news, along with our earlier attack on the north. I believe the Sun Moon Empire must be devising a plan to deal with us. However, we've not shaken their foundation yet. If we wanted them to pull their frontline troops back, we need Shu Tianran to be fearful. That's why we need to continue with our mission. Bei Bei smiled at Huro Yuao and asked, what's the plan? Huro Yuao replied, the only way to make Shu Tianran fearful enough to recall his troops at all costs is by attacking Radiant City. What? After hearing his words, all the members of Shrek's 7 monsters were astonished. They all opened their mouths wide in shock. Although their previous victories had left them extremely confident, they weren't so confident that they believed they could take down Radiant City. What kind of place was Radiant City? It was the capital of the Sun Moon Empire. It was also the biggest city in the world. They had all been to Radiant City before. Tall buildings were everywhere, and many powerful soul tools were hidden there too. Huro Yuao even claimed that there was a terrifying soul tool that could gather soul power before unleashing it when he went there last time. It definitely wasn't inferior to the Death God. Given this, wasn't attacking Radiant City suicide? After all, Radiant City had the Sun Moon Empire's trump card, the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion. At the same time, many powerful individuals were guarding the city. After sensing everyone's astonishment and doubts, Huro Yuao smiled and said, don't panic. I'm not talking about a literal attack. As long as we make Shu Tianran fear for his life, it's enough. Shu Tianran is an anti-hero. The Sun Moon Empire's research into soul tools is definitely well beyond the other 3 empires of the original Douluo continent. However, Shu Tianran can't do anything without them. We attacked the north before the south, but did not encounter any effective resistance. This means that the Sun Moon Empire is actually very hollow at the back. Furthermore, as Soul Engineer legions become more and more important in wars, the Sun Moon Empire is becoming more and more disinterested in recruiting ordinary soldiers. Even with many soldiers, they wouldn't be able to pose a threat to us. And we've also continuously caused a lot of damage and losses to the Sun Moon Empire. They can't just sit back and do nothing. Even if things are going smoothly at the front lines, how can Shu Tianran govern his empire if things are bad at the back? As a result, they'll definitely target us. To doom our Soul Engineer legions, the Sun Moon Empire can only resort to sending their strongest fighting force, the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion. While the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion holds an important position in the Sun Moon Empire and cannot be deployed easily, they can still be moved at critical moments. Although I don't know how many Soul Engineer legions there are in the Empire, I'm afraid only this elite Soul Engineer Legion can truly defeat us. This is why we must wait for an opportunity, and wait for the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion to come out. When that happens, Radiant City will be empty. Even if there are soul formations there, Wutong and I can still sneak in and perform an ambush. We don't need to really attack Radiant City. As long as we leave some marks in Shu Tianran's palace, I believe he won't be in a good mood. After hearing Huro Yuao's analysis, everyone looked at each other, and there were rich emotions on their faces. Shu Sanchi asked, Yuao, did you think of this a long time ago? Huro Yuao chuckled and replied, not really. I only made several discoveries during this period of time, which led to the development of such an idea. Bei Bei asked Yuao, if that's the case, I suggest we expose ourselves more. How can we bait them without leaving traces of ourselves? Huro Yuao said, that's what I think too. Bei Bei smiled and said, since that's the case, let's continue to run right in the south. The southern coastal cities are the furthest from Radiant City. Next, our mission will be completed by the Tang Sect Soul Engineer Legion. Huro Yuao also looked at him and smiled. The others also wore devious smiles. Huro Yuao's plan was to attack the enemy at a spot that needed to be preserved. If the Sun Moon Empire sent any other Soul Engineer Legion, they would only suffer defeat. Once the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion arrived, their opportunity would have arrived as well. Heavenly Sea City. It was an important port in the south of the Sun Moon Empire. There was a plot of land in the southeast of the Sun Moon Empire that extended all the way into the sea. It was a natural harbor. Heavenly Sea City was built on this plot of land. It was also an important training and mustering ground. The biggest shipyard in the Sun Moon Empire was also at Heavenly Sea City. Ever since the war began, the navy that was stationed at Heavenly Sea City was sent out to seal the surrounding regions around the Dalu Empire. However, Heavenly Sea City remains the most defensively sound city in the south of the Sun Moon Empire. 10,000 soldiers and a large-scale soul formation were also deployed here. There were also 7 medium-sized warships here too. Such a deployment wasn't because of the Dalu Empire. Rather, it was used to defend against aquatic soul beasts like Oak City and Eastern Sun City. There were many aquatic soul beasts, but very few of them were truly strong. The truly strong ones were mostly in the deeper waters. They rarely came to the shallower parts. However, even so, it didn't hurt to be wary. This was because there were simply too many aquatic soul beasts. Once a beast wave started, it would likely lead to heavy losses to the port. Things were also more jittery in Heavenly Sea City over the past few days. There were 200 soul engineers stationed here. They were responsible for protecting and using the soul formations. The soul formations in Heavenly Sea City were not in the city, but outside, less than 3 kilometers from the harborfront. While Heavenly Sea City was built on a plot of land that extended into the sea, it was elevated. Even when storms and typhoons raged, the waves that formed didn't really affect the city. There was a cliff close to 500 meters high close to the sea. The soul formations in Heavenly Sea City were all activated during this period of time. Their linked defenses remained active, while the aerial surveillance soul tools in the sky were constantly drifting around. They were used to guard against any enemies that might suddenly appear. It was no wonder they were so worried. In just a short 5 days, 12 cities had been overrun and completely looted. Although Heavenly Sea City was still fine, everyone became very anxious when news of their mysterious enemies spread. These mysterious enemies had even formed a Soul Engineer Legion. The city gates were sealed, and businessmen, as well as citizens, were checked more stringently as they passed. The mayor of the city even requested that the soul formations to be moved into the city. However, he was denied. Was it so easy to move large-scale formations? Some of the larger soul formations were extremely heavy. Furthermore, what if the enemies took the opportunity to strike when they were moving? Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.